Hey guys, sorry I can't be there today. Remember, we're kind of running a weird schedule. It's a short day. We're out at 2, but we're still going to all of our classes for the full length, except for our second half of the day classes, but that's not here or there. Anyways, what I want to do today is I just want to go over these trig things with you guys one more time, get you guys working on this today. I want to take a check for understanding tomorrow. I want to see what you guys can do, what you can't do, to kind of help us identify where we need to be stronger, right? So at this point, hopefully you guys have completed your warm-ups. We'll just go over those. I'll show you guys how to do those tomorrow. Again, I did not expect to not be here. So just make sure that you guys have that all together tomorrow. If you guys want to leave them at the end of class, you guys can. That's fine. Just make sure you guys have that. Anyways, let's talk about this. Remember that we have 3 functions, right? When we talk about trig, and we have those 3 functions. The first one is the sine function, which we say is the so, because it's the opposite over the hypotenuse. The next one we have is the cosine function, which we call the ca, because it's the cosine is over the hypotenuse. And last but not least, we have the tangent. All right, and the tangent is the toa, because it's tangent opposite over adjacent. All right, so hopefully that kind of gets us going a little bit on how we solve these, and it's just about working through it and getting them done. All right, so here's our first set of examples. Now, the first thing I'm going to tell you guys to do, and I'm going to do this in just both of them right now, is I'm going to label the parts of the triangle. Remember that this will help me identify what function I'm dealing with, because it's going to allow me to know exactly what I'm working with. So here's my right angle right here. All right, my right angle is right here. Across from that right angle is always going to be my hypotenuse. So go ahead and label that H. All right. Now, what are we looking for? They're telling us that we're looking for this angle here of 43. Because they're looking for that angle of 43, we kind of see that this is going to be our opposite of that angle, which by process of elimination makes this our adjacent to that. So what function am I dealing with? I have 2 things. I have an opposite and a hypotenuse, right? So how I go about solving this now, right? What this means and how this works is it tells us that the sine of 43 degrees is equal to the opposite 17 over x. Okay, can't plug that into a calculator. We can't get an answer there, so we have to do some basic arithmetic here. So we multiply both sides by x over 1. So when we take a look at these triangles, it's important that we start by labeling the parts of the triangle. All right, so the first thing we need to do is make sure A, it's a right triangle. So we have a right triangle here, which means that yes, it is a right triangle. These rules do apply. Right? Every time that we have something opposite that right angle, that's going to be what's known as our hypotenuse. Okay, and then we go from here and we can see, okay, they're giving us this 43-degree angle here. So we know that we're going to be looking for things related to that 43-degree angle. So we go across from it here, and that's what's known as our opposite, is opposite that angle, right? And then last but not least, process of elimination tells us that's adjacent. You can also look at it and say, well, they don't give us that's the adjacent side of that 43-degree angle, which makes 17 opposite if you guys really wanted to. So what you guys have to do now is you guys have to identify these different parts. And we're going to jump over to the other triangle on the right-hand side and identify those parts as well. Right? So they give us, again, it's a right triangle. Right? So our hypotenuse is opposite right there. Next up, we know that we have an angle that we're looking for. Nothing's here, so I'm going to label that adjacent. There's nothing there. It doesn't matter. And then there's that. So now we know that we are working with the sine function. Okay? So when we're working with the sine function, what we're going to be doing is using that sine function button on our calculator. So let's start off by looking at the first one on the left. When we look at the first one on the left, what we see is we see some basic things, right? It tells us right away that sine of 43 degrees, right, equals 17, our opposite over our hypotenuse, which is x. So now we have to do some basic algebra to get this by itself, right? So we're going to cancel out these x's, so we got times by x over 1. You guys know me, I like to do that x over 1 part, right? This cancels out here, 17 over 1 stays 17. X over 1 is still x, so we have x sine 43 equals 17. Not done yet because I can't plug this into my calculator, so what I have to do is I have to divide by the sine of 43 degrees on both sides. So what I have left on this side after these cancel out is I have x equals 17 over sine 43 degrees. And plugging this into my calculator, all I have to do is push 17, the divide button, the sine button, and those parentheses I need to put 43. Now I'll get a long decimal answer, and you just need to round to the nearest tenth in our assignment, and that will take care of that. Over on the other side, we're going to look for an angle. Now, what we did last time is we looked for a side. When we look for an angle, we're going to use what's known as the inverse. All right, so I want to write that there just kind of as a reminder. We've already labeled the parts, so we know that we're going to use sine here. So what we're going to do on our calculator, the keystrokes is second plus sine, which will start to display as sine to the negative 1. And we're just going to plug in our opposite, 23, over our hypotenuse, 34. Close out the parentheses. You guys know my little OCD thing with that. All right, and then you'll get a long decimal answer again and round to the nearest tenth. I don't need to round there for you guys, but I'll give it a shot. I'll round both of them out for you so you guys can just see the right answers in case you're trying along. All right, so when I do that first one, I come up with 24.92674,616. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to round to the nearest tenth, which is right there. So my focus is going to be on the next digit over, and that gives me an answer here of 24.9 units. Right, they don't give us the units, so 24.9 works there. On the next one, I'm going to hit my second button, sine negative 1, plug in my 23 divided by 34, and close my parentheses out with my little ACD again, and I'm going to come up with 42.5684542. Now again, I'm focusing on that last digit here, so I'm going here. And I know that I'm going to round this to 43, or 42, excuse me, 0.6. And that will be my final answer. All right, so that's how we do sine. Up next, let's take a look at these ones. Let's start by identifying what we are given. This first one, we are given a right triangle. Here's our hypotenuse. It's that x side, so let's label that hypotenuse. After that, what we have is we have to find this. So this side right here is touching, and this open side here is our opposite. So opposite and adjacent. All right, let's jump over to the other one here, and let's take a look. Okay, so we again have a right triangle. Here's our hypotenuse because it's always going to be opposite. Next up, we have to look and see, well, it's pointing towards the open side. All right, so when we take a look at that open side here, what we're going to do with that open side is that's our basic opposite, and then this, by process of elimination, gives us A. So what we're going to be dealing here with is we're going to be dealing with our cosine on this one, right? Because we only have the adjacent and the hypotenuse. And over on this one, we're going to be dealing with sine again, all right? So now that I figured that out, it should make this a little bit easier for us to solve. All right, so the first thing first is going over on this side. What we're going to do is we know that the sine of 53 this time equals, we have an adjacent side, 17 over x. So what we have to do, that's wrong. I screwed up. Sorry about that. Let's go back and do that again. I used the wrong function there, so be very careful that you guys use the right function. Cosine of 53 degrees equals 17 over x. So again, I'm going to follow those same steps and multiply by that to get x by itself, right? So I have x cosine 53 equals 17, and that's degrees. Now I have to divide by cosine of 53 degrees on both sides, right? And I'm left with x equals 17 divided by cosine 53. All right, and that's what you would just plug into your calculator. And as I do that, what we'll get is 17 divided by cosine of 53. Close my parentheses out. right? And I'm left with 28.2478824. All right, so what I have to do again to round to the nearest tenth is pay attention to just that first digit. When I pay attention to that first digit, I'm given, for my final answer, 28.2. Nothing changes. I don't need to round there. I stay the same. All right, now looking at this next one, which we've identified as sine. I don't know where that n went there. All right, but what we have to do is we have to go through and solve for this again. All right, now this is an inverse problem. So I want to write that here so I remember to do the inverse. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by hitting the second button, and then I'm going to hit the sine button, which is going to give me the function sine to the -1. And then I just need to put my opposite, 23, over my hypotenuse, which is 34. And then I plug that into my calculator. So second sine 23 divided by 34. And that's going to come out to 42.5. 684.542. And I'm focusing again on that first digit. That second digit there tells me to round up. So I'm left with 42.6. All right. So that would be what we have going on this one. And then the last one is going to be, well, if you guys haven't figured it out, more than likely going to be a way to do tangent. So what we're going to do is we're going to start by identifying what we're given. All right, right triangle, yes. Hypotenuse, opposite. There we go. All right, 44 degrees, this is our opposite, and this is our adjacent by process of elimination. Hop over to this one, same idea, right? Right triangle makes our hypotenuse right here. All right, and as we look, here's our open or opposite right here. And here is our last side, which is the adjacent here. So now that we have that all figured out, you guys can see that we're going to use tangent here because we're not given a hypotenuse, and we're going to use tangent here because we're not given a hypotenuse. So that's our TOA, right? So our opposite over our adjacent. So what I have to do here is I know first on this one on the left is I know that tangent of 44 degrees equals 17 over x. All right. So once I figure that out, again, I'm going to follow that x over -1. That's going to cross out. What I do to one side, I have to do to both sides. Left with x tangent 44 equals 17. Same thing. Let's divide both sides by tangent of 44 degrees. All right. What I'm left with is x equals 17 over tangent 44 degrees. I'm going to let you guys figure out rounding on that one for yourselves, but I just want to make sure that you guys can see how to do it. Here's another inverse problem. So we're going to use inverse of tangent now. So what I'm going to do on my calculator is I'm going to hit second plus tan, which is going to leave me with tan to the -1. All right, tan to the -1. And then I just have to plug in my fraction. So the opposite here is going to be my 10 over my 12. And once I do that, I'll have an answer round to the nearest tenth, and you got this. All right, so again, tomorrow I want to do a check for understanding in class, so make sure you guys are prepared. If you'd like to take this home to continue practicing, that's fine. This video will be available on my website, mrmars.com, or at YouTube if you search for the video title. All right, or subscribe to my YouTube channel. Doesn't matter. Anyways, with that, just make sure you guys are ready to go tomorrow. I will review in the beginning, and then we're going to kind of just cut loose and make sure that it happens. So be ready to go. Make sure that you guys are ready to do this, and I will see you then. Have a wonderful day and a great evening.